Club, Thought Leadership Brand Club. My name is Bobby Umar. I am a 5-time TEDx speaker and Inc. Magazine Top 100 Leadership Speaker, and now LinkedIn Top Voice, and also from the Thought Leadership Brand Club, which is a membership community to help people elevate their digital voice and brand. I'm very excited to have our monthly live stream. I have 3 amazing speakers that are going to share knowledge about how to build meaningful relationships and how to cultivate those connections online and in digital, because I think it's a very hard thing for a lot of us to do. If you are joining us, we definitely encourage you to engage with us and share your thoughts in the chat box. Comment below in the chat box. Let us know where you're calling in from, North America, South America, Australia, Africa, Europe, Asia, or you can ask a question of the audience and let us know what's going on. But we definitely want to hear from you guys. So make sure you put your chats and comments below and say hello, because maybe then I could feature it, in the platform. I actually want to test this out because I have this. Oh, look at that. Get your questions ready. So there you go. We also might notice that, Bobby, you're so thin. Well, it's because I'm using portrait mode, and that's why it's very slimming. And hopefully you'll find this new experience to be value adding. You'll enjoy it. So I hope you enjoy that. I'll start off, by getting the folks to introduce themselves. We'll start with Ariel. Ariel, please introduce yourself, and then can you pass it on to the next person and the next person, so that I have to keep talking.
Of course. Good morning, everybody, or whatever time zone you happen to be in. I'm on the East Coast of the United States in Spartanburg, South Carolina. My name is Ariel Lee. I cannot talk on a recorded thing about what I do for a living, but I'm super happy to connect with everybody on LinkedIn who happens to be watching this live, if we are not already friends. I'm a massive LinkedIn nerd and have met most of my best friends in the whole entire world. As a matter of fact, right after this Zoom, I am getting it, or not Zoom, this live, I'm getting in the car with 2 strangers from the internet, driving 7 hours down the road to Orlando to stay at a giant Airbnb with a bunch of other internet stranger friends. So I'm just really, really passionate about this topic. I didn't know it was going to fall on the day of my trip, but building meaningful relationships online is something that has absolutely changed my life. And so I'm really excited to be here and chat about it. So Jonaed is on top of my picture for my view. So why don't you go next?
Yeah, my name is Jonaed Iqbal. I'm the founder of NoDegree.com and host of the No Degree podcast, where I interview people without college degrees and have them share their stories. I've had Ariel on 4 years ago, so we are actual LinkedIn friends. One day we'll meet in person somehow, someplace, somewhere. But yeah, I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and I've been consistent. It's been like 5 years. I've networked so much, and I've met so many amazing people, and I have done the stranger thing with LinkedIn friends in an Airbnb. So I'm always excited to share those things. And yeah,
and of course, Niraj, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Niraj. I spent 30 years working in London, and now I live in Game of Thrones territory in Ireland. Really, the most spectacularly beautiful countryside. I'm very lucky to live here. LinkedIn's been quite incredible for me, because the first few years I used it, I did not know how to use it. And now I know how to use it, and I have a fantastic, not just a fantastic career, but I have a wonderful tribe and a wonderful community. And I meet people from all over the world, which really and truly is such a joy. I can't even tell you. And I'm just looking forward to not only sharing ideas, but listen to what Ariel and Jonaed and Bobby have to say today as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And for those of you listening in, again, if you have questions or comments, or you want to share where you're calling in from, put it in the chat box so I can feature on the call. I want to start with you, Ariel. You're a very naturally bubbly public persona. I love talking to you. You have so much energy. Can you talk about how you translated that into digital? Because was there any sort of challenge in the early days? I'm just curious how that happened for you.
So it's funny because I felt more empowered to be super authentic, very much myself, very open on LinkedIn or online than I do in real life, right? Like the real life people that I'm exposed to don't necessarily have a choice whether or not to spend time with me, right? They are fellow parents in my daughter's class. They are coworkers in my previous industry. All of these things, I had always kind of boxed myself up and not ever wanted to be too much or too out there. because I don't have a choice of whether to see these people again. The beautiful thing about LinkedIn for me was that I was very aware of the fact that it was a global network, and anybody who didn't like what I was about could just keep scrolling if they weren't, if they didn't want to be a part of my tribe. Like Niraj said, I believe that your vibe attracts your tribe. I was chatting with the friends that I'm about to road trip with earlier, and they had seen a post that said something to the effect of how someone would never work with or hire someone who had the pronoun fields filled out in their LinkedIn name. Like obviously it was a, super bigoted thought process, but I'm like, but isn't that such a beautiful thing that something that simple could be a trigger to let us know that we are not meant to work with those people? Other than going into a business relationship and then finding out down the line that it's not a good fit from a personality or a values-based perspective. So I'm just a huge fan of the fact that LinkedIn allows you, if you show up as who you are, your vibe is going to attract that tribe, and you don't have to put on any kind of mask or waste any bandwidth being something that you're not. People love you for who you are, or they don't, which is also amazing. So just really a big fan of that.
That's an interesting idea, the idea of being someone that you're not. I mean, sometimes I think our persona in person versus what's online is different. Jonaed, have you ever how do you be yourself digitally, and did you ever have any problems with overcoming that?
One of the best compliments I get when I meet people is like, you're exactly who I expected you to be. So I've always found that eventually I'll meet these people in a different setting. And if I'm not who I say I am, then that's going to be a problem. Because I've met a lot of people. I've met over 1,000 people on LinkedIn in person through just various. I'm in New York City, so you get to see a lot of people. And then some people are very underwhelming. It's like, hey, you're not that person. You're not this nice guy who's really there. You just play it up for social media. And when I meet you, you're just all about business. You're not trustworthy. You're not this. You say no to things, whereas online you come across this person. So I always say that you don't focus on growth for the sake of growth. Focus on growing organically and growing in a way that people resonate. Because if you can't grow that way, you're going to run into issues. I've known people who grow accounts certain ways and they get to big size, and now you can't really go back, right? You've grown a certain way, and words start spreading around. I think as big of a community LinkedIn is, it's also a small community. So you start realizing who is what they say they are and who isn't. So I always say that if you're growing in your networking, be who you say you are. That's where you're going to get opportunity. That's where you're going to get the right opportunity. And just like Ariel said, some people are not the right opportunity for you. Just because someone has a big following, I'm not going to be like, hey, I want to do this with this person. Some people are just not good for me, and they're not good for my audience, and I'm okay with that.
And Niraj, I'm curious. And again, this is, you guys can also interrupt me with counterpoints or other add-ons. It's fine. But I want to start by asking each of you a question. Niraj, I know that one of the things I love the way you post LinkedIn. I love the way you are, and you talk about sales and things like that. But let's talk about the sales thing, because I'm curious about that. I think a lot of people are afraid of sales on LinkedIn, and the fear of sales and the fear of, let's say, having real conversation on digital is something that people, I think, are uncomfortable with and afraid of. And so now that's two things. There's the digital conversation, then there's the sales thing. I'm just curious if you have any tips for people to, I guess, overcome that fear, overcome that mindset that, oh my gosh, can I really do this?
Sure. I'm going to go back to what Ariel said for a second about authenticity. I 100% believe you should be authentic online. However, what's more important is that you work on yourself first, because some people are authentically they come across badly, but they go, hey, I'm just being authentic. So it's really important to know yourself, and it's really important to work on yourself. And not many people do that. So that's the first thing you should do before you be authentic. And in terms of selling, the mindset, the shift is really tiny. It's so tiny you wouldn't believe it. Instead of saying, I hate sales, which a lot of people do, instead of saying sales makes me icky, which a lot of people do, As a business owner, you often don't have a choice, especially at the beginning. I know how difficult the first 2 years of business were. They were terrible. And despite my vast experience in London, I still found it quite difficult selling on LinkedIn. But when you change your attitude from I'm going to sell to people to I'm going to help people and I'm going to give value to people and I'm going to solve problems, all of a sudden selling becomes a better way of doing business, a better way of showing up, and also a much stronger way of building relationships with people.
Yeah.
Nir-
I'll add on to
Niraj?
that. Well,
Sorry.
go ahead, Ariel.
No, I was going to say that Niraj just took the words right out of my mouth because Lynn Williams in the comments said authenticity is important, but you need to be cognizant of your long-term digital footprint. And so what I always tell people is that if you are a jerk, work on that first before you try to develop a personal brand. I have zero qualms or concerns about my digital footprint because even if I put things out that are silly or ridiculous or, whatever, it is true to who I am. So I would never put something out that was unkind or untruthful because that's not who I am. So I think that folks that are worried about their digital footprint are people who, like Niraj said, probably need to work on a little bit of self-development before they focus on any sort of personal branding effort. But I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Jonaed.
No, I mean, I didn't even get started, so you didn't interrupt anything.
See, they're so
And-
polite, these relationship builder people. I love it.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is like when you're going online and you're in business for yourself, oftentimes, and this Ariel's former career, people have this perception of the used car salesperson, right? That hey, you need to buy now, quick, this high pressure sales. And that exists online. But I always tell people, and they're worried about this criticism, like, oh, someone's going to comment and be like, oh, you're selling. What are you doing? And everyone's just supposed to post. And I tell people, it's okay to sell. It's okay to add value. It's okay to get customers, especially if you have something that they can benefit from. And, you're worried about this commenter. The commenter works for a company that has salespeople. So I've had people criticize me and I'd be like, well, you work for HubSpot and I'm getting emails for them salespeople. So, it's like this cognitive dissonance as like a lot of people who don't work in sales, they just assume that money just flows into the company somehow. There has to be a way, right? They have to have some marketing. They have to have some sales. So I tell people, ignore those other people because there are other people who are going to be like, hey, Ariel, you have what I need. Jonaed, you have what I need. Niraj, you have this thing. Who cares about some people who are criticizing you who would never buy your product anyway? There are other people who are like, they're browsing the feed and you have something just like, you help people with the TEDx talks. And it's like, there are some people who are genuinely interested in that and they want to hear that. And the fact is we have to make a living, right? So you have to. And then one comment I'll say is I'm so glad I got online because I have found that online friends will support your business more than people in real life. It's just for whatever reason, I find that there's something special and they give you a reach that you can't get in person.
I mean, I think a lot of people struggle with getting online. I mean, one of the things that I tell people to get started with is, get clear on your objective. Like, what are you trying to do? What's your brand? What's your target audience? Like, think about those things. Like, why am I on LinkedIn? Why am I on other platforms? And are you there to just, like I'm on, like Twitter, I'm there. Twitter, I'm talking about politics, right? And on Instagram, I share family photos. Like we celebrated Eid just on Monday, so like that was a big thing. And then what am I on LinkedIn for? And I think about those things. And I think for a lot of people who are trying to figure out, how to build relationships digitally. I mean, the pandemic certainly threw us into that digital landscape most of the time. And now we're trying to traverse both the in-person as well as the digital. So I think a lot of people still struggle with that. I kind of wanted to throw it to the panel to see, like, what do you think are, why is it so hard? Why is digital relationship building and cultivating new relationships so hard? And maybe I'll start with you. Niraj.
Digital is so hard because a lot of people, when they're unsure of how to do something, default to cliche. So when people try and build relationships with me, they genuinely think that by talking about their business and trying to sell to me is a good way of doing it. A good example is my birthday every year. I would get at least 8 to 10 people saying, happy birthday, Niraj. Because it's your birthday, I'd like to give you a 30% discount off our software. I'm like, no, this is not. Stop it. And, you know, I have literally had about, I don't know, say about 1,000 LinkedIn DMs and emails this year from people trying to sell to me. I have met one person. I'm almost about to buy from him. And the reason I met him was he researched my company. He looked at my post. He made an effort. And to anybody out there that's a bit unsure, or maybe someone maybe who's an introvert and thinks, oh God, I can never do this. There's two things I want to say. First of all, if you make an effort, you will stand over and above 99% of people on social media in general who make zero effort. And the second thing is, as Bobby and Ariel know, I flew back from a LinkedIn training session yesterday in England, and I would say 90% of the room were men under 30 who use social media a lot, but were terrified of selling on LinkedIn. I did not expect that because they use, Instagram, no problem. They use Facebook, TikTok, but they were terrified of LinkedIn. And that surprised me. And I kept saying to them, okay, instead of typing a message to somebody, let's be different, because LinkedIn is not just about being authentic, which it is. It's about standing out. And one of the smartest things you can do when you connect with people, because nobody needs more messages, is to send a video or send a voice note, because your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion, your tone, everything comes across so much better on a voice note or a video. And that's certainly how I communicate with so many people. I mean, Bobby, almost all our conversations are voice notes because A, I find it easier, but also B, I can communicate so much better that way.
What about you guys? Ariel, what do you think about that in terms of, overcoming the struggles or the challenge to, for people who are trying to figure this out?
So I think on LinkedIn specifically, there's a lot of folks that go into it and just overthink the heck out of it. Because there's so many people floating around the platform that are really, really heavy on, you have to provide value, you have to do this. And we get inside our own heads about what we know or what we have to share that's valuable. And we forget that there are things that are valuable just inherently, like communication and conversation. And so I don't spend a lot of time on content creation because my stuff is more just off the cuff. That's the style that I choose to work with, because again, I don't want to overthink it. I just want to roll with it. But there's a lot of value in creating conversations. And I think and entertainment is a value. So I think people get in their heads about, oh, I don't have anything worth sharing. I don't know anything special, or I don't do anything special. And that's, so many of the brilliant LinkedIn coaches that I know and I'm friends with, that's the main thing that they accomplish with their clients, is just having a literal 20-minute conversation to pull out of them all their life experiences and their things that are different or unique or special that they can talk about. Because until somebody, like Jonaed with his podcast, until somebody highlights that, we don't feel like our story is worth telling or is special enough to talk about. So I think that that's something that people struggle with.
So I'm going to go a little against the grain, and I don't think it's hard to build relationships online. I just think it's different. And I'm just going to talk about just people have become friends through online chats, through online games, through online that. I just think people don't realize, like, hey, just because I don't meet someone in person does not mean I can't consider them a friend. I think it's actually easier because in real life, right, you have to meet them. There's some proximity, right? You meet people through school, work, the community, and all that. Online, that is the community. So, Ariel's done a great job at it. Like, when I started on LinkedIn 5 years ago, I just used to comment. And I find that you can just comment, you can do things. You can never create content and make a lot of friends. So I think it's about that commenting. And sometimes people feel weird, like, can I comment? Like, can I congratulate this person that I don't know? Of course you can. And then eventually you start commenting and you start finding some people who respond back to you. You like some people's personalities, and then eventually you hop on a call. And I think that sometimes online friendships are easier to maintain because you're both online and you could spend 2 minutes while you're microwaving your food, leaving a comment, and on to the next thing. So I find that if you can mix the online with in person, you have something very valuable. Like Ariel, she's meeting 2 online friends and going on a trip with them. And it's different because when you meet them, you already know a lot about them. You know their personality. So I think it's different. It takes consistency and work, but I don't think it's as hard as people make it out to be.
Well, I think there's two things that come to my mind. One is you mentioned different formats, right? So you talked about, putting comments out there. And so often when I work with CEO type people, I start them on comments because it's easier for them to just post content. It's easier for them to comment. Niraj mentioned the voice notes and video message. I think that's another way to do things. So I think that's so having different types of things. I mean, you got to play your strengths. Know what you like to do and what you don't. There's certain things that excuse me, I will do. Other things that I not typically will do. I still can, but it's not my main thing I would do. But the other thing I want to kind of mention is I think with digital, it's a longer play. So for example, when I meet someone at a conference, I will typically meet them in person, and within 15, 20 minutes, we have a pretty good connection. We met each other, and it can often lead to a call or a coffee pretty quickly. Whereas on digital, it's a longer play. So I may have several comments, several DMs, a long time before we actually get on a call or have some sort of relationship that way. So I think to me, I think the reason why it's hard for some folks is they think, oh, I commented 3 times and nothing happened. What's the point? Or I messaged him twice and then they stopped talking to me. And what's going on here? And so I don't know what kind of voice that was, but it's and they get frustrated. They let it go. And so, I'm curious what you guys think about that. I mean, I'm thinking that there's a longer, when you think about building a meaningful relationships, and there's certainly the instant connection piece, but then you have to build a longer connection. I mean, I'm curious for you guys, what are some of the strategies you employ, including tactics, to build that long-term relationship? And I'll start with Ariel.
All right. Well, I was just reading through. So Daniel Wright commented and asked if nonprofits should have a different approach. And I just wanted to address that question that
Sure.
and again, this is just my opinion, and my approach to LinkedIn is very casual and lighthearted. So take it with a grain of salt. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's totally fine. But my thought process has always been that humans do business with humans. And in nonprofits, your business, right, are volunteers and fundraising. And so I don't care if you're a B2B, a B2C, a nonprofit, whatever. I think that you show up as a human being on LinkedIn, you form valuable relationships because you never know who knows somebody. For example, in my industry now, I can only do business with people who live inside the United States. Now, does that mean that I turn my nose up at someone like Niraj who lives in Ireland and say, well, I don't want to be friends with him because there's no way that he can ever be a client of mine? No, he's a brilliant friend. I've learned 1,000,001 things from him. He supports me to the moon and back. And there may be a point where he has a client or a friend who's in the United States and he says, hey, you know who you need to talk to? My friend Ariel. So I think that there is value in showing up as a human, no matter what your business is, what your offer is. Just make those connections because you never know where the synapses are going to fire that links you to the right person. And now that I've gone on that tirade, I kind of forgot what your you said what the strategies were to build those relationships?
Sure. Like the long-term strategy. Yeah.
For a nonprofit.
Well, so Daniel was asking about the nonprofits, but I think Bobby was just asking in general. And again, I am not a very strategic person. I'm very off the cuff and I don't overthink a lot of things. I mean, I do overthink a lot of things. I'm like classic ADHD anxiety, but my LinkedIn presence is the one area of my life that I'm like, just take it or leave it. And so I think that Jonaed hit the nail on the head earlier with the word consistency. It is so easy to maintain online relationships because we are all spending time on this platform. It is easier than taking an hour out of your day to go grab coffee or lunch to catch up with friends. However, it is very out of sight and out of mind. I have people that were dear friends of mine in 2020 and 2021, and they no longer post. Either they changed jobs or whatever, so they don't hang out on the platform anymore. And I honestly struggle to bring their names to my brain at this point, just because they have been removed from my ecosystem for so long that they're no longer top of mind for me. So I think consistency is the important part when it comes to maintaining those relationships, because if you're not showing up, and it's the same with in-person stuff, right? If you don't call or text a friend to catch up that lives locally, for years at a time, they're going to forget you exist. And that sounds harsh, but that's the way it is. And I just think it's easier to maintain that consistency in an online world, because if you're commenting or creating content, if I write a post that takes me 5 minutes to write and 100 people react to it, that's 100 people that were reminded that I exist today. I didn't have to have 100 separate conversations. I got to just have that 5 minutes that it took me to write the post. So anyway, that's my thoughts on a non-strategic strategy.
So I'll chime in on nonprofits. I think nonprofits have an easier time than traditional businesses because nonprofits have a cause that they support, and there are plenty of business professionals who support causes, and there are plenty of organizations that support a cause. So I know I want to highlight Ariel's nonprofit, the nonprofit she works for. So think about this: you highlight the members, you highlight the cause, you highlight what you did. Hey, we just launched a new center. Hey, we just launched a new program. We just helped 4 youth get their first job. Like, that's exciting, as opposed to like, hey, my accounting firm saved you 22% on taxes. So you really have to highlight the people, the causes, what you're doing, and really engage with the people. And then why wouldn't you want to? And then when you're ready, like, hey, we're having our annual gala. Hey, we want to raise XYZ. We're going to match funds. It's so much easier to do it when you've actually seen the stories, and you can do it digitally. Whereas a lot of nonprofits, sometimes they have to do a lot of physical events, and these cost money, they cost time. Now, when you expand it digitally, you have access to so many more people, and you can get the message out so much further.
We just had Father's Day in England on Sunday, and I noticed 4 people in my network who said, this is the first year without my father. I reached out to all 4 with a voice note to say, I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine what you're feeling, because I genuinely can't. Here's my number. Here is my email address. Please reach out. Let's have a Zoom. I'm not going to give you my advice unless you want it. I'm just simply happy to listen. Of those 4 people, all 4 came back to me saying thank you. And 2 of them are going to meet me this week. That, to me, is the power of LinkedIn, is being able to reach out and help people. At least 3 times a week, I'll help someone who has lost a job or open for work. And I'll say, look, your banner is blank. You need to have something there. Your about section's got 2 lines. I strongly urge you to fill it up. You may want to think about liking and commenting in posts, because I notice you're not doing that at all. So LinkedIn, for me, is an unbelievable support system to help other people. And that is one of the easiest ways to build relationships, is purely by helping other people. Sarah Clay is doing her book launch today. And I said, look, I'm with Bobby today and Ariel. I can't make it, but I wish you the very best luck. And she messaged me back saying, thank you so much. You always wish me well. I appreciate that. Now, that doesn't have any financial benefit to me, but I do it because I genuinely wish her the very best luck. And she's LinkedIn connection, and I hope she does well. So it's just about giving, and not really expecting anything in return. Yeah. And in terms of there's in the comments section, there's 2 things. In terms of the nonprofit angle, nonprofits and charities need to become better at storytelling and sales, because the ones that approach me certainly are not. They say, hey, do you want to support us? I'm like, no, I don't know you. But if you tell me a story, tell me about your cause, as we discussed earlier, I need to have a reason why to do things. I think it was Chris Barnes earlier who said, voice notes don't work for me. Chris, if you want to reach out to me privately, and tell me what it is you say, I'll then respond to you, because a lot of people that do use video or voice notes use it to say, hi, Niraj, how are you? I'd like to explore synergies with you. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Stop saying that. So quite often what you say in a voice note or a video is just as important. You should do it because you stand out. However, what you say in it is very important too.
Jonaed, go ahead. You want to share one more thing?
And one other thing about voice notes, I find that if you send a voice note, a lot of people don't even know that you can do voice notes on LinkedIn. So I always say give context. So you give the note and just be like, hey, I just want to give you a voice note doing XYZ. So now they have context, because what happens is sometimes I get a voice note, but I'm in the middle of a meeting or I see it and I can't listen to it. And then I promptly kind of forget or whatever. But if I see the context, I'm like, okay, now I know. Or Ariel's telling me about an update. Niraj is giving me, some insight about an incident that happened to me. Now that gives me some context. So I always say give some context on the voice notes or the video so that people know what they're opening up. And I just want to say, like, the power of networking. I'm actually going I have a flight that I got to catch, and I'm actually going to Milwaukee, and my friend from LinkedIn is picking me up from the airport. I'm staying with her and her family. I'm going to Chicago because my other friend from Australia is hosting an event in Chicago. And then I have a webinar and I'm meeting my friend from college, and I only know she's in Chicago because I messaged her on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is something that's so powerful if you actually use it and if you try to be a good member of the community. I find that the LinkedIn community is one of those that if you pour into, it will pour back into you in so many ways.
Absolutely.
And so I really appreciate this.
I know you gotta
Really
go.
appreciate all of you. I got to get on this flight. Have a good one, everyone.
Good to see you tonight. Take care.
Thanks, Jonaed. And I just want to comment, like, look, I know you guys are all LinkedIn people. I'm going to comment on the thing that, look, this is live streaming across Facebook,
Yes.
Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn and YouTube. And what I can tell you is that when it comes to building, cultivating deeper relationships, most of the strategies are very, very similar. Okay, it's about engaging people. It's about replying. It's about retweeting, supporting them. It's about commenting, going into DMs, and all that kind of stuff. It's very similar. The only difference is that your objective and your target on those platforms are a little bit different. I'm a huge advocate for multi-platform content because we're on rented space, and I believe that while LinkedIn is my primary, I'm definitely quite prolific on Instagram and Twitter as well. So, because the truth is, I have a diverse network, and I find people who come to me from those platforms, and next thing you know, they all end up. I bring them all to my website and to my email list. Right, that's where I want them to go. But I think I just want to make that point because I think it's really important to understand that. And you find your tribe wherever you are. But I think there's huge benefits to having a diverse retail there. So just want to share that. But what I want to get into now, guys, and again, I haven't shared as many comments because it kept covering Niraj's face, and so now that Jonaed's gone, I can share the comments. I don't know why you're on the bottom. I was like, can I move it? I'm trying to figure it out. So I don't know who Jordan Carter is. Do you guys know what this reference is?
I don't, and I do notice this is a YouTube comment, so I don't know if he's a LinkedIn person or if this is on a different platform.
It's a YouTube comment.
Yeah,
right.
So if you would like to elaborate a little bit on that,
put that in the comments, and I'll be able to see it because I'm curious what you're talking about. I mean, again, I send voice notes on Instagram and Facebook messages as well as LinkedIn. I love doing voice notes. And what I kind of want to get into actually is tactics, because I think people here would benefit from your knowledge of the tactics. So, let's start with commenting, right? I mean, when you're trying to build a connection and get their attention and start cultivating a meaningful relationship, what exactly do you do when it comes to commenting on people's posts? And I'll start with you, and Niraj, and go to Ariel.
Well, what I do is if I'm really interested in, with somebody, what I'll do first of all before I connect with them is I'll comment on their post. I won't just go great post or awesome, because that doesn't really connect with the algorithm. You want to do 5 words or more, ideally. Anybody can do 5 words or more. 12 words or more, according to the recent algorithm report from Richard Vanderblom, works fantastically well. So now I've started to make an effort to do 12 words or more.
12 words, okay.
12 words or more. So, but I do comment at least once or twice in people's posts, and then I send a personalized connection request, not a generic one, because I don't want generic connections. Why would you send a generic invite? So I also send a personalized invite, say, I've been liking and commenting on your posts because of something I liked about it. And then once they accept that invite, I then click the bell next to their profile, which means every time they post, it goes straight through to my notifications. And that's just an easy way of kind of following somebody online, seeing what they're talking about, and engaging with them. And it's something I encourage people to do because it's a great way, because sometimes you don't always get what people are talking about online. Sometimes it doesn't show up in your feed. I believe only about 20% of your connections content shows up in your feed, which is terrible. So clicking the bell next to the profile is a sort of a more effective way of doing that. And that's how I build a relationship. And by the 3rd or 4th time I've commented on their post, if I want that person to become a client, then I reach out to them with a video or a voice note. But only business owners are really my client. Not again a salesperson, but really it's business owners. So a lot of my community aren't business owners, just everyday people working 9 to 5. So I don't reach out and sell to them. but I still give them value. I will still wish them happy birthday with a voice note or a video. I will still congratulate them if they do a really good post. So today, someone who's not a client or a potential client, she's got 2.3 million views on TikTok. And she did a post today to say, I have made no money in 2024. And I reached out to her by voice note to go, whoa, that is gutsy. I respect you for saying that. Everybody thinks you're smashing it. And you're just on a post saying you've earned no money in 2024. Whoa, I love that because it's honest and it's real. And so many people on LinkedIn feel the need to brag and exaggerate. And you've just gone the opposite direction. And I love that. Sorry, I'm off on a slight tangent there, but I just had to mention that because it happened today.
Okay, but I want to counter this and play devil's advocate. I mean, as a newbie or someone who's not very prolific with using digital, what I heard you say overwhelmed me. Right?
Well,
that seemed like a lot. So how do you manage the time to do those things? Because you can't do that for every single person. So I just want to
Of course,
ask you that.
I would
Yeah.
say 10 minutes in the morning,
Okay.
10 minutes over lunch, 5 or 10 minutes in the evening is manageable for most people. I would never say spend 1 hour, 2 hours a day. I mean, yes, at my level, I can do that.
Right.
But at the beginning, always do things in small steps, build a confidence, and then grow. That's the easiest way to do anything.
And I think we have more time on our hands than we think we do. When I started on LinkedIn, I sort of pivoted all of my social media activity that used to be non-productive scroll time and made it into intentional relationship building time on my chosen platform. And so, that's like Jonaed said it earlier. I'm at the microwave standing for 2 minutes. I used to zone out and scroll Instagram, and now I scroll on LinkedIn because that's where my people are. But I totally hear what you're saying, Bobby, in terms of that approach does feel a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to offer, y'all will notice a thread through this live that my approach is definitely more casual than most people. And I like to share that because it has worked for me. I do a tremendous amount of business through LinkedIn. I have built a sizable community there. So, there are different avenues for everyone. I do want to challenge the word tactic, just because I would like to not look at it as a tactic. I'm big on the words that we say matter. And so I don't want to, we're building relationships. We're human beings. We're not like, it's not an aggressive trying to weasel our way into anybody's life, right? We're just trying to make friends. So my strategy for commenting has always been since my very beginning baby days on LinkedIn. And I finally realized that comments are the currency that drives the impressions on the algorithm. So I was able to get out of that mindset where I was like, oh gosh, why would I comment on Bobby's post? He doesn't even know me. And say, you know what? I'm doing Bobby a favor by leaving a comment on this because my comment is going to allow more of his network to see that post and some of my network to see that post. And it's going to continue the distribution even further. So my approach to those comments is that I am going to talk to every person, even if it's a second degree connection, like a friend of a friend, somebody I don't know yet, as if they're my new best friend. If I'm genuinely excited for them, I'm going to express excitement in that meaningful comment that has more than 12 words because I want it to be meaningful, not because I want it to have more than 12 words for the algorithm, but because I want it to stick out in that person's brain. If I am expressing sorrow or gratitude for something someone shared, I'm going to do that in a meaningful way, whether I know them or not. And then to the person who said it's hard to send personalized requests, your security settings are such that it just says LinkedIn user. So I can't identify you by name and I'm sorry, but I don't ever and haven't ever sent personalized connection requests unless I am connecting for a very specific reason. Hey, we worked together 10 years ago. Or, hey, Bobby, Niraj said that we needed to connect. Or like if there's a very specific thread that I want to call back to, then I put that in a personalized connection request. Otherwise, I'm leaving a meaningful comment that's going to stick in their brain, and I'm sending that person a connection request right after so that I am a familiar and friendly face at that point, not someone that is a complete stranger sending a cold connection request. The other connection requests I send are to people who follow me but did not ask to connect, or people who are second degree connections who are commenting on my content. So again, I'm a familiar, friendly face to them. I'm not a stranger that's scary and sending a blank connection request. So I do not believe firmly that you have to have a personalized connection request. I think it's great. I think going that extra step like Niraj does with sending the voice note after the fact is incredible and goes a long way towards building a relationship. But it definitely is not a absolutely necessary to be successful thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the different. I mean, first off, let me counter with the idea of words and tactics. I mean,
Sorry.
Tactics are related to strategy, so you call them tactics or actions or plans or things you do. I mean, that's what I use the word tactics as an action of strategy. But it's just like networking. People don't like the word networking. Okay, cultivate relationships, make connections, like whatever it is. Just do the stuff that we think is going to help you. And everything we do is an asset, right? I mean, posting content is an asset to our brand. Having a clear LinkedIn profile so that people, when you send a connection request without a personal message, they quickly see it. Oh, okay, yeah, Bobby helps me with TEDx talks. Great. I'm gonna connect with this guy. So that's totally fine. And I think also it's interesting that we all do different things. Like I think what Niraj is doing, I don't actually do that either. I am my tactic or action is I do comments or I do DMs with people. And so I do comments on people's posts. And if it gets to something where I really have a conversation publicly, I'll say, hey, why don't we do a DM conversation? And then I get to know them better. And then I'll invite them potentially to connect with me. And so that's kind of what I do. But again, it's a means to an end to build a relationship and whatnot. I'm also a little bit more mindful because I have a lot of connections that I've kind of maxed out my connections. So it's like, okay, now how do I? And that's actually a mistake. Funny story. Tomorrow I'm going to do an audio room on failures. And one of the big failures I did back in the early days was I connected with every single person, and I was mass connecting 5-6 years ago, and just ended up having to get rid of a lot of people that weren't active accounts or weren't really part of my target audience, and that was a mistake I made. So I'm changing that now. I'm very mindful of who I connect with, and yes, I think people that you really like. If I have an opportunity to meet Bill Gates at a party, and then he says, "Hey, connect with LinkedIn," hey, I will send a personal message. I will comment on stuff. Like I will do whatever I can to get there. So I want to actually mention one thing is one of my best tactics actually is audio rooms. And the reason I like audio rooms is because having done them on Clubhouse and having done Twitter Space on Twitter, I find that similar to what Niraj talks about with voice notes, when people see your authentic audible voice and they say, oh, it's Bobby, he's just a regular dude talking like the way he is right now, they kind of want to, they're pretty open to it. And so when I have an audio room, what happens is we bring them on stage and now you're having this two-way conversation with somebody and they hear you, they see your face in the profile, and that's why I do 2 audio rooms per week, because I find that it's a great way to have a conversation. And then when I follow up with them, it's actually a far, far more fruitful dialogue. There's something really powerful about audio rooms than, I mean, I'm a video guy. I do live streams, I do videos, but it's me publishing to everybody else. With audio, they're there with you having a conversation. So I'm a huge lover of audio events, and I kind of encourage everyone who's listening in to think about that and try those out, because we have tactics that work for us, and we have actions. We try these actions.
Your word.
We have actions and things we use that work for us, and some that don't, right? So I'm curious about that, because are there things that you do and other things that you don't typically do? I mean, when it comes to your relationship building on digital.
So I love, and Niraj and I actually formed our relationship, and I think, Bobby, that's how we met too, is on Clubhouse. So we are huge fans of the social audio. Niraj and I hung out almost daily for a couple hours a day back in like the early part of 2021. And our mutual friend Liam Darmody said back then that social audio was the gasoline on the fire that our LinkedIn relationship started, right? So you might have been already connected to these people, but being able to have a two-way dialogue and hear the voice and the inflection and all of that was so powerful, and just really, really dug those relationships a million miles deeper than they ever would have been had they stayed surface level. So no matter what path you take, getting the relationships offline in some way, whether it's social audio or video or a Zoom call or a phone call, an old-fashioned phone call, it's so important to deepen those relationships. I think that it really does matter. regretfully do not utilize them as much anymore. As you can see, I'm in like an actual office. I no longer work from home. I just simply do not have as much time in my day as I did in those earlier days of the pandemic. So I try to pop in when I can. Our friend Andy Foote leads the social club every once in a while. Liam actually has a LinkedIn block party going right now with Ashley Beck Quaylar that I butchered that name, Quayar, that they recently started hosting. So I pop in when I can, but it's not an intentional part of my strategy like so many other things are. I'm not allowed to do videos, so I don't do that. But I do think those are great relationship building things, especially if you're early on in your journey. I'm kind of at the point where I am excited to log in every day and meet new people and make new friends, but I'm not as aggressively trying to grow as I used to be. And so I'm just sort of killing. So.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I just want to mention that too. Like, on Clubhouse, I met all these people by running LinkedIn Mastery. I met Leah Turner, Andy Foote, John Aspirian, Joel Algie. All these people came into the rooms, and you guys as well. And that was the huge start of my community building on LinkedIn. So I think that's been a huge part of it. That's actually how the Thought Leadership Brand Club started. We started there and grew to like 37,000 followers. Now we have this membership community. This live stream is brought to you by the Thought Leadership Brand Club. It's a membership community like the other ones you see out there, but basically you be part of like-minded people. There's trainings. There's great people out there. We have a training every Thursday at 4 p.m. You can join us and see what it's all about. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, one of the things I want to talk about is, let's start with personal branding. Okay, I mean, relationship building is a core of your personal brand. And I kind of want to get a sense from you guys. Start with you, Niraj. Why personal branding is so important and how relationship building is fostering that personal brand.
Well, somebody in the chat just brought up something I was about to say. People don't buy from companies, they buy from people representing those companies. And that's so true. And in my industry, I work in two industries. I'm a sales trainer because I've worked in sales my entire life. And I'm a LinkedIn trainer because I'm a LinkedIn top voice. I visit LinkedIn HQ very regularly in Dublin and Europe. And I talk to people there and I teach people how to use LinkedIn. And now, as we all know, in the last year, every man and his dog and his friends are a LinkedIn coach or LinkedIn expert. Every marketing person's a LinkedIn. Everybody's trying to offer LinkedIn in some way. And I would say about 10 to 20% of those people are very good at their jobs. The rest of them are what I call chancers. Because I know they're chancers because between a month or to 6 months after they post that they're crushing it and they're turning away business, they approach me privately saying, Niraj, out of curiosity, how much do you charge for coaching? I know what we charge, but what do you charge? Ask me questions that nobody in their right mind who is successful would ever ask. And that's how I know they're chancing it. So I say, look at what a lot of people in your industry are doing and don't be afraid of going in a completely different direction. So most LinkedIn people will teach the same thing: optimizing profile, how to write content. What I focus on more is sales and selling, because most people don't do that. When it comes to sales training, most sales trainers are often quite passive aggressive and they focus on the sale. What I focus on in sales is mindset, vision boards, routines, habits, emotional mastery. Because if you can't get that right in sales, nothing else matters. But again, none of my competition are doing this. So I really recommend building a personal brand by looking very closely at your industry and going in a different direction to other people. I am not the best on LinkedIn. I'm certainly not the best, even the top 10 on LinkedIn, not even close. But I get the work because I'm different and I stand out. And that's what I always encourage people to do.
Same. I could just leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't mention what I do for a living, but hopefully you guys are connecting with me. I'm really excited to meet all
Follow
of you.
her.
We're in the you don't have to follow, we can connect. We can have a two-way friendship.
Do both.
But anyway, the people who do what I do are a dime a dozen on LinkedIn, unfortunately. And a lot of them, I'm going to be less kind than Niraj. He said 10 to 20% of the LinkedIn trainers were doing a good job. I think maybe 3% of the folks who do what I do are doing an okay job at LinkedIn. And so it's just so powerful if you show up in a way that is slightly different and unique and true to who you are. So I always said, Niraj and I always joke about the use of emojis in a post. I had somebody tell me years ago that they didn't feel like that was appropriate. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And they said, Ariel, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn, but I just wouldn't, use emojis on a professional platform. And respectfully, if somebody's turned off by emojis, there's going to be 1,000 other things about my personality they don't like. So it's really great that they know that up front. But using emojis on LinkedIn does not make you successful. I use emojis because that's who I am. If you text me, if you DM me, if you email me on my professional email address, you're going to get emojis. That's who I am. So anyway, just your personal brand should be like holding up a mirror and showing up on social media exactly the way you show up online and in person. It shouldn't be something that you have to craft or really take a lot of energy into forming. It should just be exactly who you are.
I'd also like to add, sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Somebody made a Jim Rohn quote earlier. I'm going to do another Jim
Yes.
Rohn quote. Success leaves clues. Find successful people who are doing well and learn from them. I started using emojis 2 years ago because of Ariel. And plus, no other guys were using it. I saw a few women. I did not see any men use this. And I saw Ariel do it. And I go, I really like that. I didn't use the same emojis as her. Mine are slightly different, but I used them. And it made a difference. Again, it helps you stand out. And look at what successful people are doing. Don't copy them, but be inspired by them. With Ariel, she's so down to earth and approachable. It's like, it almost comes naturally to her, even though it may not come naturally in real life. It just comes across so easily. And, be inspired by people who are successful. Don't be jealous ever. And don't compare yourself to other people, but be inspired by them on LinkedIn and think that's what I'd like to be like. Not exactly like, but in the sense of being inspired by them. And I do that a lot. When I see people more successful than me, I don't go, they got lucky. I never say that. I'm like, that's fantastic. How did they do that? That's brilliant. Be inspired by people who are doing well.
That's a great point about the emojis. I think I started doing emojis because I saw someone do a post. Oh, those are kind of fun, and I'm a fun guy. Maybe I should be doing these. And I don't know who it was, but I can imagine it being Ariel and just like, oh yeah, I could. or maybe Leah Turner or something like that. Like, yeah, let's do this. So I do them now all the time, almost all the time. I sometimes rarely do it without them. So in fact, I feel compelled to put an emoji. I want to add one thing about the personal branding, which is, look, personal branding is very often used as a means to stand out, which is great. The thing that I always advocate for personal branding is that if you do the deep dive work on personal branding, which is a little bit of work and deep dive work, you get more clarity and focus and direction. So when I know who I am and how people like me and want to experience me, then when I put comments, when I reach out to people, when I'm engaging in conversations, it's much more focused and purposeful and meaningful than wandering all over the place. And so I think that's one of the reasons why personal branding is so important when it comes to doing that. And so yeah, I think that's a great piece. This has been great. A lot of people have been commenting from all over the world, which is great. We do appreciate it. Let's talk a bit about the networking piece too now as well. So I mean, if you're trying to network on LinkedIn or other digital platforms, I mean, is there any sort of particular strategy that you think is really important for folks to use that we haven't talked about? Because I feel like we've talked about a lot of stuff. So is there anything we haven't mentioned yet?
When it comes to networking, I like networking because it's not digital. I don't enjoy online networking events. I've tried them. It's just not for me. I'd rather drive and see people face to face, shake their hand, look them in the eye. And a lot of people pitch networking events, or even worse, they go, hi, what do you do as soon as you meet them? And I feel often judged when people ask that. And I know when I used to ask that question, people felt judged. So when I go to a networking event, I always say, so what brought you here today? It's a really nice, open question, not offensive. What brought you here today? And I listen to what they say. And second of all, I always ask them, who are you interested in meeting? And if I like the person, I'll introduce them to somebody they're looking to meet. Or I'll say to the organizers, who in this sector do you know they could meet? And that's really the key to networking events. It's asking questions, it's listening. If you're an introvert, especially if you're an introvert, and my daughter's an introvert, she hates networking events. And I said to her, sweetheart, just ask questions and listen. You don't have to say anything at all. That's what she does. She asks questions and she listens. People think she's fascinating. She barely says a word because she's an introvert. She doesn't want to speak. She's happy just sitting in the back of the room and not talking to anybody. But when you ask questions and listen, you come across very well at networking events. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You don't have to be the best storyteller. You don't have to walk in like a peacock saying, hey, look at me. Walk into a room and say, hey, how can I help you? It's just, it makes networking much more enjoyable.
You just have to be interested versus being interesting. If you be interested, you become far more interesting. So I think that's an important piece to remember. Era, any thoughts on this? Actually,
No.
before you do that, let me add. I just thought of something too. Niraj made a great point. So you meet people in live network events, and now we transfer them into digital, right? We get their business card, we get their emails, we connect them on LinkedIn. So now, what do you guys do? Like, how do you transition from the in-person to the digital and then maintain that connection? Ariel, maybe you can talk about that.
It all harkens back to consistency, whether that's consistency maintaining a DM back and forth if they're not someone who's engaged on the feed, or consistency in the comments, whether you're commenting on their post or they're commenting on yours. Just maintaining that visibility where you're going to remain top of mind for that person is so important. And I think that taking in-person relationships online makes it all the more easier.
Thanks, guys. I think we're coming to the end of our time here. Yeah. I want to thank everyone for being here. Keep sharing your comments, keep tagging us. You can share this live stream. It's public on your profiles. You can reshare it with folks and let folks know what it's all about. Niraj, how can people follow you? How can we support you? Let us know what you're up to.
If you really want to support me,
yeah, support this guy, please. We love this guy. Come on.
You want to support me? Go to YouTube, type in "Everybody Works in Sales" and press subscribe. I've just relaunched my YouTube channel. I spent a lot of money on it, and it's really hard getting subscribers. On LinkedIn, it's easy getting followers, but on YouTube, it's hard. And just to let you all know, you click subscribe on YouTube. You don't go into my sales funnel. You don't go into my email system. You don't go into anything. You will just get value by videos every week. And that's my goal at the moment. Or follow me on LinkedIn. I like to get personalized requests only because I like to know how I got to know somebody. And when I send requests to people, again, at a networking event, I will always say, hi, we met at this networking event and you mentioned ... I do that for two reasons. A, it helps me keep account of how I know somebody, but also it shows somebody I was listening. And it's really important people know I listen because I work in sales, and salespeople are notorious for not listening. So again, try to do the opposite of everybody else.
I love that. Ariel, how about you?
I am on LinkedIn an inappropriate amount of time. So the unicorn is not in my name on LinkedIn. So it's just Ariel Lee. The unicorn is in my headline. Would love to connect with everybody. I'm going to go back through my recent followers just in case there was anybody who didn't know that they had to click more and then connect, so that I can reach out to you. But I appreciate everybody being here. Hope you found it valuable. Bobby, thank you for hosting as always. It's been a pleasure. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. And just on my note, on Friday, I'm doing a TEDx webinar that's free. You can register. I've already posted about it on my weekly post. Actually, just this morning, you can take a look at that. If you want to be a part of that, learn how to land a TEDx talk. And then TLB Club hosts their weekly Zoom masterclass. I'm going to try to get you guys into this thing at some point if it's possible. But basically, this time we had Heather Epstein talk about communication strategies at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then I'm doing a LinkedIn audio room. I do them twice a week, Tuesdays at 4 p.m., Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about embracing failure. I'm going to share 3 specific examples where I failed and what I learned from it and how I overcame it. And I think you'll find that really interesting to show that, even though there's some amazing people out there who are doing some great things, we also have sucked at many times in our lives. And I think it's important to share that. So if you like this live stream, share with the world. Thanks to Ariel. Thanks to Niraj. Thanks to Jonaed. Follow these people. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Bobby. Ariel.